Can a driver change the course of a team like Ferrari? What if there are two? Hamilton and Leclerc have set red lines that could redefine the future of the Scuderia. But is Ferrari ready to meet their demands? The technical management of the team, which now includes a closer integration between the Maranello wind tunnel, the latest generation simulator, and the track, has opted for a much more collaborative and less hierarchical work model. The drivers are being listened to more actively, and the data they provide in feedback is crossed in real time with the development of the car in the factory. This is a quiet but profound change, the era when Ferrari made technical decisions from the control tower without involving those who drive it seems to be behind us. But this same change, this apparent initial stability, is about to face a critical test, the Spec BE package that Ferrari is preparing for Bahrain. This is not a simple aerodynamic improvement. It is a structural modification of the car's concept, an early evolution that could multiply the potential of the SF26, or break the balance that worked so hard to achieve. And that's where Ferrari's transformation could falter. Because what is at stake is not just performance, it is the credibility of the new technical approach. If this package fails in its correlation between simulator and track, there is a risk of reigniting the ghosts of the past. And that is precisely what Hamilton and Leclerc want to avoid. That is why they have raised their voices from now on, so that this time, Ferrari does not ruin everything when the pressure rises and the calendar begins to advance. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari has not simply been a media or contractual movement. It has been a declaration of intent on the part of the Italian team and a veiled warning to the rest of the paddock. They want to win again, and they are willing to reformulate everything to achieve it. But with Hamilton has also come a new internal culture, a way of working that challenges Ferrari's traditional structure, and that puts every level of the organization under pressure. Hamilton has not needed time to mark territory. From his first laps in the SF26, his approach was clear: analyze, compare, and demand. It comes from a Mercedes that, despite its recent mistakes, dominated an entire era thanks to a rigorous data philosophy and a continuous improvement mentality. Therefore, his view on Ferrari is technical, not emotional. He has quickly identified patterns to avoid: inflated promises, blind reliance on wind tunnel data, and decisions that do not translate into on-track improvements. His insistence on the correlation between simulator and reality is not a whim. It is the result of years in which Mercedes experienced a brutal disconnection between what its computers projected and what the car delivered on the weekends. Hamilton knows that this type of self-deception is lethal for a team that wants to be champion. That is why he has drawn a very clear red line. If the SF26 numbers hold up with Bahrain's aggressive package, optimism continues. If not, he himself will be in charge of turning on the internal alarms. But his pressure is not only technical, it's politics. Hamilton is using his media weight, his authority as a multiple champion, and his personal prestige to impose a standard within Ferrari. He doesn't just want to compete. He wants the entire team to function as an elite unit. And that includes the simulator engineers, the strategy team, and the track coaching staff. It requires aligned decisions, honest information, and the ability to adapt in real time. He has said it between the lines. He did not become part of Ferrari folklore. He came to win championships. On the other hand, Charles Leclerc has understood that he can no longer allow himself to be the obedient boy from Maranello. Years of frustration, failed strategies, and inexplicable mistakes have pushed him into forced maturity. This season, Leclerc has begun to communicate more directly, less diplomatically, and much more focused on what he considers fundamental: total transparency in the interpretation of race data, especially in long runs and energy management. In recent years, Ferrari has repeatedly fallen into a dangerous trap, reading times optimistically, interpreting consumption and degradation data with biases, and making development decisions based on a disguised version of reality. Leclerc has put an end to that logic. He wants engineers to work crudely, with surgical precision. No softening of conclusions to reassure the leadership. If the car degrades badly, it must be said. If energy consumption is not optimal, it must be restructured. No more excuses. Both drivers, although very different in character, agree on the essentials. It is not about being the fastest in the tests. It's about having a car that can endure a season of development without losing its way. They want a Ferrari that will remain competitive in July, not just in March. Because you already know the pattern. A good car and secure that begins to fade when the other teams bring aggressive evolutions. And this year, with Red Bull reconfiguring, McLaren on the rise, and Mercedes making up ground, there is no room for setbacks. The most interesting thing is that these demands are not accompanied by threats. There is no talk of breaking contracts or creating internal crises. What is perceived is a silent but firm pressure. If Ferrari wants to retain Hamilton as project leader and keep Leclerc committed to the cause, it will have to respond with actions, not speeches. Because in 2025, it is no longer enough to seduce drivers. You have to convince them with results. Bahrain will not simply be the second round on the 2025 calendar. It will be a technical and psychological thermometer for Ferrari. The Scuderia arrives with a mixture of optimism and contained tension. What is played on that circuit goes far beyond the points in dispute or misleading timetable. What is really at stake is the validation of a whole new work approach, a structure that seeks to break with the bad practices of the past. Bahrain will be the first big trial of the year. On this circuit, with traction curves and sudden braking, the demands on the structural integrity of the car are much higher than what was seen in Barcelona. It is the perfect environment to evaluate the thermal efficiency of the hybrid package, stability under prolonged braking, energy recovery capacity under high load, and above all, resistance to graining and lateral degradation in long runs. And in the middle of all that, Ferrari will arrive with a Spec B that is not a simple aerodynamic evolution. It is an internal mutation in several areas of the car, including flat bottom components, diffuser and front suspension settings that could completely redefine the dynamic behavior of the SF26. The risk of implementing such an aggressive change at such an early stage is enormous. If it works, Ferrari can gain weeks of advantage over its rivals in developing the car. But if it fails, the team could be trapped in a spiral of corrective adjustments that consume its resources and compromise the update schedule. In modern F1, losing the pace of development in the first 4 Grands Prix is almost a condemnation for the rest of the championship. That's why both Hamilton and Leclerc have demanded that the package be implemented only if data correlation remains intact. They don't want a theoretical improvement that doesn't work in real conditions. They know that if the car starts to behave erratically, the external pressure will increase brutally. And in an environment like Ferrari, that pressure quickly turns into impulsive decisions, technical cuts, pivots in development direction, and loss of strategic leadership. Furthermore, there is the political factor. The media pressure on Ferrari is constant, but in 2025 it has intensified with the arrival of Hamilton. Every mistake will be amplified. Every technical decision will be scrutinized. Each result below expectations will be interpreted as a symptom that the 2026 project is not going as planned. And that adds structural stress that not all equipment is designed to withstand. But there is also a unique opportunity. If Ferrari manages to go through this first phase without crisis, maintaining internal cohesion, clarity of technical direction, and the confidence of its drivers, it could lay the foundations for a real renaissance. Not a symbolic or promotional one, but a tangible one. Winning in Bahrain would not only mean scoring points, but also demonstrating to the paddock and Ferrari itself that this time they are prepared to build a champion car from the ground up. Bahrain will be the breakout or consolidation point, and what happens there will set the tone for the entire season. Because beyond the final result, what will be defined is the technical and emotional direction of one of the most historic and pressured teams in Formula One. Ferrari has the tool. It has the pilots. You have the data. But now it needs execution. And there will be no second chances to correct course if Spec B does not deliver what it promises. The countdown has already begun. We are facing a decisive crossroads for Ferrari. It's not just about a new season or a luxury lineup with Hamilton and Leclerc. What is really at stake this year is the credibility of a project that has been redesigned from its foundations to break a cycle of frustrations that has spanned more than a decade. Ferrari has invested time, resources, and political capital into creating a new technical structure, redefining its organizational culture, and for the first time in a long time, putting its drivers at the center of decision-making. But this transformation, as promising as it is fragile, needs to be supported by concrete results. What makes this situation especially tense is that there is no safety net. Neither Vasseur nor the engineers, nor the pilots themselves are willing to tolerate another year of false hope. Hamilton has brought with him a different measuring stick. He demands precision, he demands truth, he demands results. His presence has accelerated the times within the team. There is no longer room to improvise. If something does not work, it must be corrected quickly. If the data does not add up, they must be confronted without makeup. And Leclerc, who has matured under constant pressure, has adopted an equally demanding stance. His message is clear: transparency or distrust. Ferrari has responded with a competitive base car, but now it must show that it knows how to evolve, not just be born well. Because the recent history of the Scuderia is marked by a painful pattern. Good starts followed by losses of direction in the development race. What is at stake now is to break that cycle. Bahrain is the first season of that challenge, but it will not be the last. What happens there will serve as a barometer, not only of the technical potential of the SF26, but of Ferrari's ability to manage under pressure throughout an increasingly strategic, more political, and more ruthless calendar. The big question then is this: are we facing the true beginning of Ferrari's redemption, or are we simply witnessing another momentary illusion before the technical and emotional collapse? Can this Hamilton-Leclerc pairing sustain the pressure, lead from within, and bring about the change that so many have tried without success? Or will the weight of history prevail again? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.